Alrighty, everybody, it looks like it is about that time, so we'll go ahead and get started today. We'll give it a quick second for everybody to jump in here, but thank you all very much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to tune in today. Just to introduce myself, my name is Sam Jameson with the Eventbrite Customer Experience Team, and today we're here to educate you on how to use the power of Facebook and Instagram marketing to help market your upcoming holiday event. So if you're listening, I always love making these interactive sessions. Please let me know where you're tuning in from, if you have any questions along the way, if we're breezing through something that's really important to you or you're not quite understanding, always please feel free to ask a question in the chat. But our main focus today, to give you a little bit of an agenda, is going to be revolving on how to use Instagram Boost to market your holiday events. We're going to spend a little bit of time, first and foremost, talking about the variables that are in play for determining your campaign success to actually promote your events. Then we'll actually dive into a couple specific examples of what some of the big players that run events for their holiday run campaigns for their holiday events are doing in terms of their event marketing, and then we'll actually jump into the platform to show you how to create a campaign. So diving in, I'd love to start off by just kind of talking about the main variables that affect not only your holiday ad campaigns but any ad campaigns that you're running. So first and foremost, you would want to ask yourself and really put yourself in your customer's shoes and ask yourself, at this point in time, would I myself be very likely to purchase for my event? We always want to be considering what the level of urgency is for our customers to actually make that purchase. Is if we're spending a lot on ads when we're really far out from our event, people are already worrying about one holiday upcoming and they don't have the mental bandwidth to think of the next. It's really important, especially in terms of holiday advertising, to make sure that you are spending on your ads or getting your ads running when people actually have urgency to buy, or else we're not likely probably going to see a lot of results. The second main variable are the target audiences. So, am I going after new people, getting them interested in my event, but am I also taking advantage of past buyer data if I've had these types of events in the past? So, from our data that we found, most individuals that end up purchasing for one event of yours, considering it's probably not like an intro archery class that somebody takes that class and then they can't sign up for the next one, but most events we generally find that your past purchasers are one of the best people to actually help drive ticket purchases for the next year. So we'll just want to make sure that we incorporate audiences that help us go after new people and target our past purchasers, our engagers, etc. And then budget is very in line with the campaign type and schedule. So, am I spending when there's actual urgency to buy? Or if I do choose that I would like to spend on some ads right now and I know my customers aren't likely to purchase, maybe I'm pursuing things that build up awareness, engagement around my event instead of maybe driving for ticket sales at that moment. And then lastly, is the ad creative that I'm using actually giving some context of what the experience is going to be like? When people are looking at your events on social media, they always want to be clued into, what would the experience actually be like if I were to attend it? And if we're not really using creatives that foster a sense of imagination about the event or really show people some context about what your event is about, people are not as likely to stop, click, interact with that ad, etc. So these are the four main variables, and we'll go in depth on a few of these and then jump into a couple demos of campaigns and then show you how to build them as well. But I want to make sure that you're understanding the why we recommend certain things before we jump into everything today. So first and foremost, revolving around campaign type and schedule, there normally are two different types of campaigns we run in the event space. So one of those is what you might have heard as a link click or conversion ad if you've ran anything on Facebook before. This option on the left that says get people to buy tickets. Generally, y'all, these are the best ads to run when our customers actually have urgency to purchase. If they don't have urgency, we might want to pursue something like a Facebook event RSVP campaign instead, which not only makes it accessible for people to purchase if they want to at this point in time, but at the very least, if they visit that event, you can retarget them down the road by hitting interested or going on your event. They're tying themselves into constantly getting notifications and updates about the event. So, main thing you just might want to ask yourself is, am I in a period right now where I expect customers to be actively purchasing right now, or do I expect that a little bit further down the road? If you expect purchases now, you could run something sending people straight to your eventbrite.com ticketing pages or your website, or doing something like an RSVP ad if you want to build some remarketing audiences to then take advantage of your customers when they're in a period where they're more likely to purchase. Then going over to the target audience mix, we'll show you some specifics here and do some more interactive examples down the road. But the main things you want to consider when it comes to the target audiences you choose to target is, One, am I A/B testing? So you wouldn't want to always put all of your eggs in one basket. So let's say we're advertising a New Year's Eve event, and the only audience we have is targeting people interested in nightlife. If that audience does well, that's going to be fantastic. It's probably going to drive a good amount of sales, good amount of registrations. But if that audience doesn't do that well, we don't have another audience to take advantage and move budget over to that actually might be performing a little bit better. Am I also using the best data sources I have available? So many of us, when we spin up a campaign in Facebook for the first time, we're maybe just marketing to people that are interested in a certain topic or in a specific demographic. But there are a lot of audiences that you could use that are sometimes hard or difficult to create that we've tried to solve that problem in our platform, but allow you to target people such as those that have purchased from you in the past, use that data to go after brand new individuals with things like lookalikes. So it's important to just use the best data that you have available, as some audiences are going to be a lot more likely to purchase than other audiences. And then also, are we matching our targeting and our objective with our customers' purchase intent? So if we're spending way too much of our budget are really far ways out from our event, just advertising to people that aren't necessarily familiar with our organization or our event in previous years, they're probably not as likely to purchase as somebody that maybe bought in the last year. They already know what to expect in terms of the experience. So these are just the main things that you'll want to keep in mind when it comes to the targeting that you use, but we'll help you in the next couple steps kind of talk about this a little more. Now, basically going into some of the buying behavior patterns of many holiday events that we see, generally at least when it comes to New Year's Eve events, we see that individuals are very, very last minute purchasers. From all of my years of working with tons of customers that have thrown New Year's Eve events, normally we see sales kind of start to pick up around maybe mid to late November with a really, really slow kind of curve teetering in. And then generally it's that week after Christmas and that last week leading up to New Year's where most individuals running New Year's Eve events, besides some of the events that generally sell out a long ways in advance, but for most common New Year's Eve events, people are already thinking about Christmas. They need to get Christmas off of their mind before they can contemplate what they're doing for another holiday. So, if you are advertising New Year's Eve events, you would want to take advantage of ads that help build engagement and awareness probably in the mid to early December months, and then maybe after a couple weeks in December, then you can run ads going straight to your ticketing pages when you know your customers are most likely to purchase. So for any of those of you throwing New Year's Eve events out there, you just want to be conscious that maybe at this point in time when we're, just early November, a lot of people aren't thinking about New Year's. They're currently thinking about Thanksgiving. They're currently thinking about Christmas. So generally you would want to focus on things that build engagement and awareness for now. So then as we get closer, we can actually drive them to our ticketing pages and we have audiences to remarket to. So when it comes to kind of the variables that impact the New Year's Eve campaigns, most customers from our experience generally purchase in maybe the beginning of December with really heavy sales after Christmas. If you are building some of those target audiences, you'd want to focus on probably targeting people interested in nightlife or music genres and artists if your event is music related or has talent there. And then we also would want to use the group remarketing audience to basically help market to people that interact with our social media accounts, people that visit our website, and then people that have bought from us in the past. And when it comes to budgeting, you generally would probably want to reserve a good amount of budget for specifically focusing on advertising in December, building engagement and awareness earlier, and then you actually have an audience of people that were interested that it'll be very easy for you to remarket to. And in regards to the ad creative, I'd say prioritize using video content that maybe it's a montage of a past event if you've had one of those that just gives people a little bit of a visual of, what would this New Year's Eve experience be like if I were to attend. So this was one of our users in the past New Year's Eve events that ended up running a really good strong New Year's campaign. So I just wanted to point out a couple good things that they did here. So this was their campaign that was sending people to their ticketing pages, and they actually started this campaign pretty late in November. So this is pretty much what in line with what we've seen for a lot of New Year's Eve events that generally once Thanksgiving ends, that's when people can start thinking about New Year's. So many of their campaigns, they would focus maybe on building engagement and awareness in that early November period. And then as they get closer into December, that's when they focus more on these campaigns to actually drive ticket sales when we have the expectation that, okay, our customers are going to start purchasing. And they had used two audiences here going after new people. If you haven't heard of a lookalike audience before, just because these are a little bit hard to find or build in Facebook sometimes, basically all what a lookalike audience is you're giving Facebook a little bit of data, so maybe data on people that bought from you in the past, or in this case, people that visited their website, and you're using that data to help you go after brand new people. So when I was talking a little bit earlier about using the best data sources available, this person actually had a good amount of past purchaser data, so they were able to give that data to Facebook, and Facebook gave them back a new audience of people that were very similar to those that had actually made purchases in the past. So pretty cool data, and actually ends up outperforming a lot of other audiences. But they also had another campaign where they were focusing on remarketing. So with this campaign, they were marketing to their past purchasers, people that interacted with them on social media, and that traffic visiting their website. So what I really like about these campaigns was, they really kind of focused on the right timeline, starting that advertising in late November, early December. They A/B tested a couple different audiences. They didn't put all of their eggs in one basket. So I think this was a really good example of one of these New Year's Eve event campaigns. And going on to kind of a sample target audience mix that you could use, you could generally target people that are interested in either nightlife, if it's strictly a nightlife related event, or target people that are interested in similar artists to the ones that you have performing. Maybe target people that have purchased from you in the past and people that interact with your socials. And as well as if you have past buyer data, you can always target people that are similar to those that bought in the past. And that a lot of times is one of the stronger audiences you could use. So basically now to kind of pivot and talk about recurring holiday events, a lot of Christmas oriented events, winter events. Generally, if your event isn't happening on one date, but you have a recurring event that's happening multiple times over the holidays, generally these events have a lot more even buying cycles throughout. A lot of these events from our experience generally start around the start of December, so actually now would be a perfect time to start pursuing advertising for many of these events. So kind of compared to New Year's Eve events where there's only one event happening, it's on New Year's, it's pretty far out. These events are a lot more frequent, so individuals don't feel the need to wait till last minute and they can actually attend and purchase whenever they feel comfortable or are ready to attend that event. So some of the performance impacting variables that impact these types of events, generally for a lot of these events that tend to start late in November, maybe early December, many customers begin purchasing in maybe early to mid-November with heavier sales after Thanksgiving once, one holiday is checked off the checklist. And if you are advertising something that's a family friendly event, one of the best types of targeting you can do is you can actually target parents. And that historically has always been a really good type of targeting to use for holiday events, as they're generally very family focused, but then also targeting your past buyers and things like lookalikes. When it comes to budgeting, you'd probably want to make sure that you reserve a good amount of your budget for advertising, maybe in the period that we are now, or starting your ads next week if your events are in December, for that early mid November advertising to then carry on when you have your events in December as well. And when it comes to ad creative, just like we talked about earlier, really try to prioritize using video content. Even if you have some phone footage, iPhone footage clips of something of the last year, and that's better than a photo that you're using, you could use different tools to kind of cut that up, make a little montage, so you're actually showing people some insight into the experience. Now, this campaign that we are looking at here, ran by Lincoln Park Zoo out in Chicago for their holiday event. I really like the example of this event, as this was an event that was actually happening in early January that we had right here, but they actually started advertising this event around early December, so just a couple days out from where we are today in the previous year. And what they had actually focused on is they knew, this event that we have, even though it's starting to occur in January, we still want to get a little bit of advertising. We want to build awareness. So they had actually focused on running one of those Facebook event RSVP ads. And even on paper, this may have been a time period where we didn't expect to see a lot of sales, but actually, because people were able to purchase through that Facebook event, we did see a good amount of people end up purchasing. But at the very least, we also got another close to 2,400 people in our remarketing audiences. So as we get closer towards the end of December, we actually have a good pool of people we can market to that had already expressed interest in the event. And for their targeting mix, for many of these holiday events, if it's Christmas related or family friendly, you can target things like parents, the Christmas and holiday season, or various other Christmas light interests or anything like that. Any holiday interests effectively work in this section, depending on what type of event you're promoting, and then those similar remarketing and lookalike audiences as well. And just going over a couple ad creative examples, y'all, in any case that you happen to have video content, I'd highly recommend try to prioritize using that video content over image content. And generally, anything that's branded tends to perform better than non branded images. Facebook used to be really odd about not letting you use text in your images or kind of penalizing you if you had too much text. Just so you know, they've kind of removed that as they realized a lot of us in the event space don't really have anything else to work with. So I really like this video on the left for this New Year's Eve event that was basically showcasing all the artists that were performing. It had some montages of the previous year's event. It gave a lot of good context as well. But from an image standpoint, I really like this one that we had over here for a Christmas light event that we had. Basically showcasing children, they were targeting parents, so it was really eliciting, that emotion of, oh, I could imagine and envision my kids in this thing and all the amazing photos that we would get. So what I really liked about these two ad creatives in particular is they both gave context as to kind of what the event was about, working best with what they had available. Of course, with a video that you can give more context, but for this image that we had right here, since we were targeting parents advertising this holiday related event, it's really easy to, have a parent visualize, what might my child look like if we're taking some really nice family photos at an event like this. So, always using photos or videos that help showcase what the actual experience is going to be like is going to go a really long way into helping promote a successful event for you. Now, just a couple advanced tactics. Most of y'all, if you're not spending a crazy amount on ads, probably don't need to do this, but it's something I just want to mention as the first example for that New Year's Eve advertiser. This was actually something that they ended up doing. So, advertisers with bigger budgets, you might want to consider setting up one campaign to go after new people. We call that prospecting, and then one campaign going after a remarketing audience. The nice thing about this is if you want to control how much budget goes to certain audiences, so you're like, okay, I want 80% of my budget to go after new people, and then we only need to spend, 20% of our budget retargeting people that bought last year, people that interact with us on our social media accounts. This is one way you could do it, but for the majority of you, you're probably just going to be putting everything into one campaign. But I just wanted to mention it as it might be an advanced tactic that you hadn't thought of before when it comes to advertising. And y'all, on average, from what we've seen, creators using Boost generally on average sell around 16% more tickets compared to using something like Facebook Ads Manager. And the reason being is we've automated a lot of the decision making steps for you running the right campaign at the right time, helping you include some of these more difficult audiences that are hard to build in Facebook, such as targeting your Eventbrite past buyers or building lookalikes off of these audiences. So basically, our main goal with Eventbrite Boost was let's take the power of a automated Facebook and Instagram advertising tool and combine it with Eventbrite's existing features, such as add to Facebook, email marketing, so that you in one comprehensive place have a one-stop shop that you can go to for all your event promotion needs. And just to briefly talk about where you'll find this and a couple other features that are going to be relevant for your holiday advertising, you can find Eventbrite Boost within the Marketing tab on Eventbrite. So if you go to the Manage My Events section where you're normally creating your events, just click to Events and then you will find the Marketing tab up in the top left. And here you'll find some of the familiar faces, the email, the add to Facebook, alongside the newer Facebook and Instagram ad components. So I briefly want to talk about one of the free features, which is add your event to Facebook. Y'all, if there's any takeaway that I could give you of something that would be very beneficial for your event, that's really easy to do, doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't cost you anything, is make sure you have published your Eventbrite event over to Facebook as a Facebook event. The reason this is so important is one, people can easily buy tickets without leaving Facebook, so it's a very frictionless and seamless buying experience that we have. But then second, if individuals are RSVPing to your event or they visit your event, they're going to get reminders about the event so they don't happen to forget about it. We have a lot going on. Facebook throws us a lot of notifications and stuff like that. So it can be helpful to get a reminder about the event, especially if you, as a customer, were potentially interested. But the reason that Facebook events are very, very powerful is you can also use them from an advertising perspective to kind of kill two birds with one stone. So you can build remarketing audiences, foster awareness, social proof, while also making it accessible for those that want to buy tickets. Compared to kind of a normal ad where you go straight to your ticketing pages, the only downside to these campaigns is they only run on Facebook. But if the majority of your demographic is on Facebook as well, it might not be a bad idea to run some RSVP ads. And then email campaign functions as well. If you aren't using something like MailChimp or Constant Contact, another dedicated email provider, and want to send out some very customizable email campaigns to either let your prospect email list know about your upcoming events or notify your past purchasers. I'd highly also recommend use the email campaign function, as generally from what we found, if you are advertising on more than one mechanism, so that could be anything from print or billboard advertising to email or social media advertising with email, generally the more places that individuals are seeing your events, the higher likelihood they have to remember your event and actually purchase for your event. So definitely I'd recommend always make sure to be incorporating email marketing as part of your strategy as well. But the main thing that we want to focus on today is specifically going to be how to advertise your events on Facebook and Instagram. And we'll actually dive in and walk you through the campaign creation process and give you a good amount of context along the way. So let's go ahead and jump into one of the example campaigns that we had looked at earlier, just to give you a brief kind of overview of what the reporting looks like, what happens when you run a campaign, what did these creator actually do right, and then what will the process be like for when you build the ad. So what you can see here is we've really tried to streamline a lot of the most important data for what you're actually trying to get out of the ad campaign that you're running. So if your ad campaign ends up driving sales or people purchase as a result, and we can track that. Just to let you know, there's been a couple changes with Facebook recently and Apple regarding iOS 14, where a lot of the old tracking mechanisms, if you've ever heard of Facebook pixels, same thing as kind of cookies, or the reason if you visit a website and you see an ad from that retailer after you visit, a lot of those tracking capabilities have been impacted. We have our own unique tracking that allows us to basically map people that purchase with their same email for your Eventbrite event over to their Facebook and Instagram to help you track these purchases. So if you drive purchases, this is what you're going to see first and foremost here. Then we'll also try to break down, okay, how many people did your ad in general reach? How many individuals ended up interacting with your ad or your event so that you can retarget? So in this case, they had around 2,500, close to 2,400 people that interacted with their ad that might be more likely to purchase as we get closer to the event. Then we'll also break down, RSVPs, cost per purchases, things like that. Lots of numbers on your screen, but we'll give you a breakdown of which audiences actually drove the most sales to as well, and then basically give you a breakdown of how your creative is performing if you were testing a couple different creatives. But let's actually go and hop into the process of building a campaign. So to go ahead and get started, the easiest place to start creating your campaign is going to be in that event strategy section. So you'll notice a drop down and just go ahead and choose the drop down that you or in the drop down, choose the event that you would like to promote in this section, and then you can see this little curve underneath here. Now, half the battle of running a good ad campaign is simply trying to run the right type of campaign at the right time. And it can be really challenging if you're hopping into something like Ads Manager, you see 30 different types of objectives that you can run, and you don't really know which one's going to be most impactful for your event and your efforts. So what we've done is we've taken the data that we've learned from hundreds of thousands of campaigns to build a system that actually recommends what campaign you should be running based on how we normally see people purchase for events. And this graph is actually showing you data of how, on average, your customers end up purchasing for your events. So this isn't going to be event specific, it kind of pulls more of an average. So just to let you know, you might have holiday events where people purchase in a little bit of a different fashion compared to maybe some of your normal events. But the purpose here is let's try to give you a visualization of when your customers normally purchase tickets, and then based on that data of when your customers normally buy, we'll recommend the type of ad we think you should run. So I selected my event, so we'll go ahead and hit this button to get started building our ad campaign. So the first step of building your ad is simply choosing the objective. We'll automatically suggest one for you, but I just want to give you a little context so that all of you know the logic behind why we recommend these decisions. So this ad that we have on the left, the get people to buy tickets, these are generally the best ads to run when there is definitive urgency for our customers to purchase. There wasn't a lot of urgency for people to purchase. We would probably want to run a different type of ad as if we're really far out from the event, people see an ad for an event a couple months out, they might not click on it, they might not interact with it, and then you can't retarget those individuals down the road. But maybe if you ran something like a Facebook RSVP, if people saw your event, they might click on the event just to show a little bit of interest. And if they interact with that ad in any way, shape, or form, you can now remarket to them down the road. But if somebody does actually want to make a purchase, they can easily purchase via that Facebook event if you use the add to Facebook feature. So you could kind of think about it as we move from left to right in terms of the objectives. Ones on the left are best for sales, ones on the far right are best for engagement, and RSVP is a good kind of mix of both of them in the middle. But for today's objective, we will be sending people to our eventbrite.com ticketing pages, so we can use the drop down to choose our event and then go ahead and hit the Continue button here. In this next step, we're going to be choosing, okay, what's the ad account that we would like to pay and finance our campaign with, and then what's the Facebook and Instagram page that we would like to run our ad from here in this section. And then if you happen to have a Facebook pixel or you're working with multiple, you can always select which one you would like to use here in this section. If you don't know much about Facebook pixels, y'all, will actually automatically handle this installation for you, so there's nothing you need to do. But basically what it does is, A, it helps you track purchases. If people interact with your ad, then go to your Eventbrite site and then end up making a purchase. If they can be tracked via their privacy settings, it can help map purchases back to your ad campaign. So, maybe I'm making $3 back for every dollar that I spend, but then it also helps you remarket to people that visit your event ticketing pages, which generally people that visit your event ticketing pages already have a good amount of urgency to possibly make that purchase. So it's good to remarket to them as well. But if you don't know anything about pixels, y'all, don't worry, as we actually automatically handle the installation process for you. I know a couple years back it was kind of hard to install things like pixels, but we automatically handle that for you, so don't stress it. Now in this next section, we'll just be entering in the location targeting of the area that we would like to target with our ad campaign. This normally should automatically pull from your Eventbrite event. If it's left blank, it'll hit the US by default. So my event that I selected was targeting the entire United States, hence why it's blank here. But if I wanted to go ahead and enter in a specific market or specific city, very easy for us to do here. And normally it's okay to leave it a little bit broad in terms of the distance. Let Facebook optimize it. It's probably going to beat any of us trying to make manual decisions at the end of the day. So I'd recommend probably work with a 50-mile radius around your event, but just consider the context of, if you're in somewhere like LA, 50 miles might be 2.5, 3 hours of driving. So you just want to keep that in mind for your targeting. And then down towards the bottom, this is where we can choose all ages events. If you are advertising a New Year's event that maybe has drinking, you have partying and drinking in kind of your ad creative that you're using, it might be a good idea off the bat to just target 21 and up, especially if the event is 21 and up. But Facebook is sensitive to things like alcohol in the creative content, so if you are using creative content that contains that, you might want to just bite the bullet, choose 21 and up in the first place here, and then hit continue. So in the next step, this is where we are defining the target audiences for our campaign. So we have two different views. This is the advanced view, but let's switch it over to the normal one that everybody sees when you first hop in. So this is where we are going to enter the targeting for our ad campaign. So the first thing that we start off with is something called interest, behavior, or demographic audience. This is where we're going to target people that are interested in things like Christmas or nightlife or anything related to the event that we're advertising. So if I'm throwing a New Year's Eve event here, I might do something like I might just type out New Year's first to kind of see what I can target. One of my best recommendations is just try typing out something here to see what people could see what you can effectively target, as you can't target everything under the sun. So New Year's Eve, that's a fantastic one. We might want to just type out New Year's one more time to see what we could effectively target if there's anything else that's relevant. So nothing else here looks relevant. So then I might pivot to something like nightlife. If it's a nightlife type of event that I'm advertising, or maybe doing something like drinking, if it's kind of party related focused or anything like that. And then generally once you have a couple interests typed here in this section, you can use this drop down to get other recommendations on things from Facebook's that are similar. So, maybe like nightclubs, that might be something relevant in here, potentially bars or theater, something like that. You generally probably want to have around maybe 5 to 10 interests here in this section. There's no right or wrong answer, but these interests that I have in here are pretty big sized. So just in our area, with these interests, it's around 4.2 million people. So you just want to make sure that you're not going too small with the interests that you tend to include, but I'd say prioritize quality over quantity in this section. Now, if we were advertising something like a Christmas related event, what we might do is let's first and foremost just go ahead and type out Christmas just to kind of see what we can end up targeting. Okay, so we have a lot of different things here. So we can maybe type out Christmas. We'll type it out one more time to effectively see what we have here. If anybody has any questions too on the interest targeting, please feel free to drop it in the chat, as this was a little bit confusing for me when I was first learning. So just looking through this, Christmas decoration. If we're doing like a Christmas light type of event, let's just keep typing out Christmas and effectively see what we could maybe target here in this section. Christmas lights, that might be perfect. If our event is very family friendly, we might want to try targeting something like parents. The parent demographic is an amazing thing for you to target for any event that caters towards, bringing the whole family, anything like that. So we could target all parents, and then we can use the drop down to see if there's anything else that might be, very similar that we should maybe include here. So just looking through here, we have a lot of different things. Maybe including something like Santa Claus. That might type it off. Even having around, 5 interests in this section, still a pretty decently sized audience of around 2.5 million people. So I'd always say when it comes to interest, y'all prioritize quality over quantity. It's okay if you have a good amount of interest in here and there's something that's a little off. Facebook always optimizes it down, by the way. And lastly, if you are throwing a music related event or a comedy related event, we have this really cool tool where you can basically just type out any artist that's on Spotify, lowercase right here. So basically, instead of you having to look up, let's say it was a Beatles cover band New Year's Eve party or something like that. Instead of needing to look up the Beatles, write down, 20 to 50 artists one by one to see what you can target as an interest, you can simply use this drop down to choose any artist on Spotify and will actually automatically make an interest audience for you of Facebook interest based on that Spotify artist data. The same thing works for comedians here too as well, but I just wanted to point this out if any of you are throwing music related events and like to use the music related targeting or comedy, this is an awesome shortcut to help save you a little time. And then additionally, we are including an audience of people that interact with you on Facebook and your Facebook events. But if you also have an Instagram account to remarket to and slash or a Facebook pixel to remarket to, you can always include that as well. And then by default, we're including an audience of your past purchasers for previous Eventbrite events as well. So we basically, with this mix that we have right here, have one audience helping us target new people, and then another audience kind of hitting all of our data sources of people that have maybe purchased from us in the past or have a little bit greater purchase intent as they've interacted with us in some way, shape, or form. And then once we're done with our target audiences, we'll simply want to set a start and end date for our campaign. Y'all, when it comes to the schedule and budget, just be very conscious and honest with yourself. Am I in a time period right now where my customers, in previous years were even purchasing at this time? We shouldn't have the expectation of sales unless we've even seen previous data to back it up when those individuals might be purchasing. So always try to be really conscious and put yourself in your buyer's shoes and ask, am I even willing to purchase at a point like this? If the answer to no is no to that question, you might want to focus on things that build engagement and awareness. Maybe not spend a ton of money on the campaign and reserve a good chunk of budget so that you can actually focus on advertising when your customers are likely to purchase. Now, in the next step, you can set a total or daily budget. Doesn't really matter which one you do. Ultimately, you'll just want to do whatever makes the most financial sense for you kind of keeping track of the campaigns that you run. I'd say if you're going to change up the budget on the day-to-day, daily spend is sometimes a little easier, but if you have a fixed budget, really easy to work with total budget here. Awesome. And then the last step of our campaign is simply where we customize the ad creative for the campaign that we are building right here. So we can basically see the previews on the different placements where our ad would appear here. Now, generally when it comes to the creative, y'all, the most important element is that image or video, as it's the first thing that captures our attention normally when we are scrolling through platforms like Facebook or Instagram. So I'd always highly encourage, if you have video content, please try to focus on using that video content, as it can just give people a lot more context as to what your event's going to be like when they actually attend and really help them imagine, oh, I could see myself having a great time at this event. But if you are using images, sometimes it helps to have nice branded images as well that give a little bit of context. But just try to use things that are going to give people context about, what's the event actually going to be, compared to maybe just a flyer that, doesn't have any photos of the event and it's literally just text on a blank background. That's not as engaging. It doesn't really give people much context. So try to use images that showcase the event. But best if you have video content, try to use that at the end of the day. Now, the post text that we have right here, this is what's going to show up above our image or video that we have in the ad. Generally, the main things that you want to address here is, first and foremost, are we using language that fosters a sense of urgency, especially if we're in a period where there's urgency for our customers to purchase? Maybe ticket prices are going to increase on a certain date, or maybe there's very limited capacity. If we're not using language or not being clear in our ad that that's actually a situation that's currently at play, we can't expect our customers to potentially know that. They'd probably have to click through and then find out that information down the road. So if tickets are going fast or you have anything that might really get somebody to purchase, you would want to make sure that you address that in your post text that you have right here, that text text that comes up above. But then generally you're just trying to let people know like, what's going on with the event, when is the event happening, where is the event happening, maybe what's a little context about what's going to be occurring at the event. So that's the main stuff that you just want to address in your post text. So language that fosters a sense of urgency, the who, what, when, where, why, etc. But you don't need to be redundant and have it all over your ad as well. The link headline, y'all, that's what's going to show up down below the image or video that we end up using. Generally, most people just enter the name of their event, kind of just repeating it in there or give a little bit of extra context. It's one of the more kind of lesser looked at components of your ad after your image and your post text. But generally, a lot of people just use their event name or kind of leave it as default. And then down towards the bottom, the link description. Now, this doesn't show up in every network placement nowadays, but basically it just aims to describe like why would somebody click on that buy tickets button. So in a lot of cases, you could just say here to like click to get your tickets on Eventbrite. It's probably the least important component of your ad by far. And then your call to action, that's the button that people can click on when they interact with the ad that, in this case would take them to my eventbrite.com ticketing page. I would suggest if you are selling paid tickets, probably try to use that buy tickets one, but there are a handful of other call to actions that you could use that might make more sense for your events, such as potentially maybe something like a learn more or a sign up if you're offering a free event or something like that, just so people maybe don't get confused that they don't have to pay for tickets. And then you can use these buttons to get a preview of what your ad looks like on the different network placements. So let's go ahead and click on Instagram stories here. And we can see initially that I added in an image here that's horizontal. So it doesn't necessarily look the best for Instagram stories. So if you happen to have nicely vertical formatted assets for your campaign that you would like to use, you can always click on the pen icon underneath the image or the video that you add in. And this is going to let you change up the image that you're using on your creative or the video or the crop or the thumbnail on a per placement basis. So if I had something that's really nicely formatted for Instagram stories that I wanted to use here, I could click on change image, go ahead and find up another image that we have here, click and add that in, and then we'll have a customized image on stories that just looks a little bit more professional for what we are effectively working with. And if you want to A/B test any component, you can always add in extra variations. So let's say, for example, I didn't know if this kind of branded image that I had would maybe outperform this kind of non-branded image that I had in this section. I'd encourage you, you can always do a little bit of A/B testing, add in more than one asset, but a very similar train of thought to, you don't want to use too many variations of your ad creative or add in too many audiences, as the way the campaign works or optimizes is basically as each one of these ads reaches enough people, Facebook gets a little bit of data on what's working, what's not working, and it can optimize it. And one mistake that I actually made when I was first starting to run a campaigns was I thought, okay, more variations, that just means more people are seeing different versions of my ads. They're going to have less ad fatigue. They won't get tired of it as fast. But what ended up happening was I split my budget far too thin that Facebook couldn't optimize and actually figure out what was working. So I'd encourage you, if there's anything to A/B test, maybe just stick to like two versions of your image or video. Maybe post text potentially is a second thing, but don't even really bother A/B testing these other components of your ad, as it probably is going to hurt you more than it will actually help you. And y'all, that is actually the last step of creating this ad campaign. So just wanted to take a brief pause here, as I know we went over a ton of information. Did any of you have any questions? Anything I could go into a little bit more context about, or any specific questions for your type of event that you are effectively throwing? Awesome, y'all. Well, didn't see any questions come in through the chat, so we should be good to pretty much wrap this up for today. Just wanted to let you know, if you need to save your campaign as draft, feel free to hit that save as a draft button, and then you can really easily duplicate previous drafts that you've created or active campaigns. So let's say, for example, this was one of the ad campaigns that we were going to run for our event right now that was maybe a New Year's Eve event or something like that. We are spending a little bit of budget, not running for something for too long, but then this campaign ends and we want to launch a new one. The easiest way to get going is simply duplicate any campaign that you have ran. It's going to copy all the information, and odds are maybe 70-80% of the info in your campaign is not actually changing. We're still promoting the same event. We're still running it from all of the same pages, so we probably don't need to change anything here. Unless our event got moved to a different location, we probably don't need to even change this. We might even be able to leave our target audiences the exact same as they were in this section, and then maybe all we're doing is setting a new schedule, a new budget, and then maybe just updating the copy of our ad, and then boom, we have a new campaign running in 1 to 2 minutes here in this section. So thank all of you. I really appreciate you carving the time out of your busy day to tune in. If there's any feedback that you have for us of other topics that we could help cover with these sessions or anything for future sessions I could go into a little bit more detail on, please feel free to let us know. You can always try out a free 14-day trial of Boost within that marketing tab. All you have to do is simply launch a campaign and that will get it started for you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via that help button. We have a lot of people watching and actively trying to help make sure you have a positive experience in the platform. And I just wanted to thank you once again. My name has been Sam. Have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. I normally do these on Thursday, so throw me off a little bit, but have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday and a wonderful week, and I really appreciate your time. I know you have a lot on your plate, so it really means a lot for you to invest your time in learning, and I really hope that I helped give you some positive information to help crush your upcoming holiday events. So, again, everybody, my name has been Sam. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and take care. Appreciate your time.